Hello St. Paul's geographers, another 6 mark question coming from Unit 4. Bring this down a little bit here. Unit 4, which is the ecosystems topic. And the question is to describe, our command word here, describe the actions that, the role that global actions play in the sustainable management or protection of polar environment you have studied. Okay, we're going to look at the Arctic. Okay, that's going to be the focus of our question. And the role that global actions play are going to focus in here on the Arctic Council and the Paris Agreement. Now these, we're going to make up our two main paragraphs here. We cannot discuss whaling here because it's a local initiative from Baffin Island, and it's not meeting the requirements of the question, which is for at least something which is enacted by a number of countries and different communities from different places all over the world and trying to protect the world. Okay, not just protect a specific environment. Okay, so we're going to start off by a point on the Arctic Council. So what we want to say here is that the Arctic Council aims to protect the natural environment of the polar ecosystem. So put that into your own words. Aims to protect, and I will leave it there for you to finish off. You're going to give some evidence for the Arctic Council. Now the Arctic Council was set up in 1996 by that's the Paris Agreement I'm thinking of here. 1996, set up by 8 different countries. And the council was also set up by 6 indigenous communities. Now we don't need to name them, but if you want to know what I mean by indigenous, you can think of the Inuit in Baffin Island, the group of natives in that community. We're thinking about those kind of small communities. So 6 of those and 8 countries have come together and set up this council. Kind of like a governing body, but the problem with this government is that it does not hold any legal right. It would not be able to fine anybody. It would not be able to fine businesses for going against what they're trying to encourage, but it does try to encourage people, businesses in those 8 countries and in those communities. Of course, the communities are going to be, the indigenous communities are already going to be more environmentally conscious than typical of countries that we know. But people in those eight countries are going to be considered to take business action which is more environmentally friendly, more eco-friendly, maybe to do things like to fish less so that overfishing does not occur. But there's just some examples that we could refer to. Maybe you can refer to one of them. And then for our link sentence down here, we're going to link back to the question of the role that it plays, and we're going to say that actually there is no Arctic Treaty, and this is one of the things that kind of lets the whole thing down. There's no document that brings into law some of the things that this Arctic Council is trying to encourage. So that's a big problem here. Countries are not required to follow this guidance. And as a result of them not being required to follow this guidance, we're going to think about, well, are there any treaties that do exist? And there is one that kind of protects the Arctic to an extent. That's the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement, first signed in 2015 by 195 countries, sorry. Now this is constantly rising over the years. Of course, the book that we have, the textbook, only goes up to 2015, so we're going to go with that data there. Now, this is a legally and the first legally binding global agreement in terms of climate. And that's really important because it means that there is going to be a reduction in the amount of activities that people engage in that affect the environment. Now this is our evidence, obviously. I should have said that earlier on. This is our evidence. And now we want to explain that evidence that we've just given. So the goal of this is to limit global warming. We're actually going to throw in a little bit more data here, and that limit is going to be, hopefully by 2050, that the increase in temperature is no greater than 2 degrees. 2 degrees Celsius. By 2050, we want to make sure that no more than 2 degrees Celsius of average global temperatures is what we see the temperature increase by. Now that's, again, really important because it means that there's going to be the protection of biodiversity. And you might be able to add in some other things that would be protected. For example, can our society be protected in any way? You might need to think back on what kind of impacts does a rise in sea level or a rise in temperature have on people. How will this protect them from that? And then finally, we want to give a link sentence. And that link sentence is going to bring back to this treaty here does not directly affect the Arctic. As the proposal of a potential Arctic treaty would. So the result of this is that we do need an Arctic treaty. The Arctic Council needs to get on this. They need to work towards an Arctic treaty. When will it happen? Nobody knows at the moment. The Paris Agreement is definitely a reference point for it, and it can refer to the Paris Agreement in it, but it is not going to be specific enough to protect the Arctic. And the things that we want to protect the Arctic, such as whales, such as polar environments that are being affected by things like the Prudhoe Bay oil spills. So these are all reference points for your 2 paragraphs here. Okay, so that's the answer there. Give it a go and send it in to myself or to any of your teacher, whoever your teacher is.